here we are back in the studio. Dr. John Osai-Kwapong is back with us. You had started some thoughts that I truncated. Please go ahead.
No problem. So I was talking about the NCC report,
right?
Matters of Concern to the Ghanaian Voter, which was launched
yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday,
okay.
yes. And this is a report that the NCC has been doing since the 2004 election. Very insightful report, some very interesting findings as well. One of the things that I would mention quickly in this initial 1 minute is the willingness to vote in the upcoming election.
Yeah.
So you see
80%,
80,
thereabouts.
Yes, 80% thereabouts, which is very good. But when they start breaking it down, you see some gender gaps that males as indicating they are more
outnumber females.
Exactly. And then younger voters are saying they are less likely to vote than your older voters. And then when you look at the regional variations too, Greater Accra comes out last, right? Only about 71% in Greater Accra are indicating that they are willing to vote in the upcoming election. And then in the northern regions, it's over 92, 93%. So when you look at the regional map they've created, you see more intense willingness to vote in the northern regions. Then by the time you get to Accra, and I don't know what is going on in Accra, in the Greater Accra region, that
because the Greater Accra region is sort of one of the kingmaker regions. Usually, I mean, where the NPP has performed well in the Ashanti region, if the results are not too good in Greater Accra, it could be problematic, and vice versa. So, I mean, it can be tricky.
Very, very much so. So that the regional variation was quite interesting to see, and what that means for the political parties. And then the youth voters especially, the first-time voters. How do the political parties respond to a finding like that? Because I just don't know what is it that it's not making the youth that willing to step out and vote. Maybe they don't.
Maybe the apathy is on the back of poor governmental performance, not just now, time and again.
Right. Maybe they are also not feeling that the issues that are important to the youth are being addressed enough, and so perhaps they don't think an election would make a difference. But it will be interesting to see how the political parties respond.
Yesterday, I watched Just Turn 18, and hopefully we'll bring you that episode on the AM shows sometime next week. And Lois was asking them, first-time voters, what would influence their votes? And there was a guy who said that, well, they see the politicians going around and making all these promises, but they haven't actually said anything to them in particular. And these are children on the streets, most of them who are just turned 18. They said they are not the target audience of these politicians. So maybe that also feeds into why we don't see the enthusiasm, because they feel like they're just passive participants in this election rather than an active part. There are nearly 1 million new registered voters, and they could tip the scales. So it's important that the politicians pay attention to their views as well. But should we get into the newspaper? I want to start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. On the front page, NPP triggers Parliament recall. There's a story here about $450 million manganese refinery project begins in November. Ahead of the new academic year, traders switch to educational materials. Add herbal medicines to National Health Insurance Scheme, and that is according to the Ghana Federation of, I think, Traditional Medicine Practitioners. 13 presidential candidates on ballots unnecessary, according to Professor Prempe. Let's start from Apenyo Markin's story right here on the front page. So the New Patriotic Party caucus in Parliament has requested the Speaker of Parliament to summon Parliament to transact urgent government business. A memorandum of understanding addressed to the Speaker, signed by the Second Deputy Majority Chief Whip and Member of Parliament for Seshi Akontombra, Alex Tete, cited 3 urgent matters for consideration, including 6 bills and 5 legal bases for the request to summon Parliament. Quote, respectfully request that upon recall of the House, the following urgent government business be deliberated upon and transacted, including any other business that comes before the House, he said. So they're in the process of doing this. And this morning we saw reports from the NPP accusing the NDC of a document that they produced, which spells out how they intend to capture government using their legislative power. And I keep asking myself while watching the story, but who started all of this? Who ran to the Supreme Court? But what do you make of this, Doc, before we do some other stories? NPP's trigger of Parliament's recall.
You know, the majority leader had given that indication that he was going to try and recall Parliament as a way of trying to also resolve this impasse. I'm not sure how the Speaker would respond to it. I don't even know if once he's been able to get the numbers to say Parliament needs to be recalled, I don't even know whether the Speaker can say no to that, since that threshold has been met.
I mean, there are provisions, and what is interesting now is, you know, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamako, the South Nine legislature, has also said he's heading to court to get the court to give some proper interpretation of that issue and stay the issue till that determination. I guess right now what is in season is, I take you to court and there's a stay of whatever process. So he's going to stay that move so that Parliament will not be recalled and all of that. As for us, like I said, we've grabbed our popcorn and we are watching the thriller.
But at some point, though, this has to be resolved, right? For me, one of the worrying things is we seem to be also drawing the courts too much into settling some of these politically sensitive issues. And the consequences that I worry about is that at some point, depending on how the court rules on these matters, you end up, you know, framing the way Parliament does business, not based on Parliament's own rules and processes and procedures, but you have, the court now having a more direct hand in how Parliament conducts its business. So I'm just hoping that within the institution itself, within their own rules, processes, conventions, whatever, that they can come to some agreement on how to get past, this impasse.
You know what will be interesting? If Parliament is recalled and the Speaker sits and says, well, there's this injunction, so I'm adjourning Parliament again.
And that's...
and then it keeps going on and on.
Exactly, and when would it stop, you know? Or like you said, when would we stop going to the courts to say injunct, stay, back and forth till when? After the election, after the new Parliament comes in. At some point, I'm just hoping that some resolution will be found.
Well, let's do some other stories. So $450 million manganese refinery project begins in November. All is set for the Ghana Manganese Company, a mining firm located in Suta in the Western region, to construct the country's first manganese refinery. And the salt for the commencement of this $450 million project will be cut on November 21st, about a month from now, this year, to pave the way for the phase 1 to start. And the project, which is part of the vision for the company to transition from exportation of the current low-grade carbonate manganese to high-grade through value addition, is being undertaken by GMC in collaboration with its majority shareholder, Tanyo Manganese Industry Group, a Chinese company. I'll put a pin in that, do some other stories, and then I'll come to you, Doc. Ahead of new academic year, traders switch to educational materials. Just a brief on this. Most traders in the Central Business District of Accra have switched over to the sale of educational materials about a week to the commencement of the 2024-2025 academic calendar. Add herbal medicines to National Health Insurance Scheme. I think Monday or so we saw the report that in the newspaper that said Ghana stands to rake in some $5 billion from what they are calling green gold, which is traditional medicines. So the Ghana Federation of Traditional Medicine Practitioners Association, GAFTRAM, has urged the government to include approved herbal medicines on the list of approved medicines on the National Health Insurance Scheme. And the Federation expressed concern that the traditional medicine sector had received very little attention from successive governments. And the president, Prof. Samuel Ato Duncan, said this as a commemoration of the 22nd African Traditional Medicine Day and the 25th Traditional Medicine Week, celebrated in Ghana and held in Accra. In politics, legacy of leadership, political landscape, and the road ahead. NDC applauds Speaker for effective leadership. NPP remains committed to peace, Dr. Opoku Prempeh says. on the back page, we have IAST Commission's pilot's pyrolysis at Osu Alata landing beach. What other stories here can I add quickly before I come to you? 13 presidential candidates on ballot are necessary. Let me do this. Now, the executive director of the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, Professor Kwesi Prempeh, has chastised the Electoral Commission for failing to do a diligent and scrupulous work of allowing 13 presidential candidates on the ballot for the December 7 polls, knowing very well that some of the parties do not meet the needed requirement. He wondered why such numbers kept recurring on the ballot each election year when the EC was aware that such parties only acted as proxies for either of the two major political parties, the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party. This is coming from your home. Let's start from there. What do you make of this?
You know, once someone passes the threshold and is eligible and qualified to run for the highest office of the land, you can't really prevent them from doing that. And so, whilst 13 candidates on the ballot, and respectfully I disagree with Prof, whilst 13 candidates on the ballot may seem, you know, unwieldy, or may even, as per the story, may be a proxy for the other parties. If 20, 30 people want to run, and those 20, 30 are deemed qualified, that for me is the beauty of democracy, and you must allow that to go on. You can't find other ways to trim down the number of qualified candidates on the ballot because a particular number may look like it's one too many candidates on the ballot. I
thought this was actually a trimmed down one because before now, we had reports of more than 19 independent candidates. And now if we're all the way down to 13, I think it's still a good job done. Ben?
I think, though, that still looking at the numbers, looking at our population, and looking at, I'm sorry I have to say this, serious democracies and how leadership, I feel that if you want to look at people who can actually do the job, and I say so very respectfully, I look at some of the candidates there. Of course, we know that the MPP and the NDC are supposedly behind some of these people who contest. But if I am assessing them in terms of what they bring to the table, honestly, some of those people should not be there. Honestly. You talk to some of these people and you ask yourself, is this the person who wants to be? I'm saying this very respectfully. Any serious democracy. So I do feel that maybe there should be other means of scrutinizing these people, whether it's whether we get to the point where there is going to be a debate, and depending on those who perform to a certain level, and maybe there are public votes, and that if some people don't pass a certain threshold beyond the B40, beyond the have this and pay, because it appears, oh, I can be 40 and above, have money, and once I can show that I am here and there and I meet certain minutiae of requirements, I'm good to go. I feel, because it also reflects on the quality of leadership we have got, we are getting, and we will get. Do you get it? We've watered down leadership to the point where any Tom, Dick, and Harry, any Kwame Akosua and Mansa can say, I have the money. And we see them. I just don't, I'm stopping myself from Manu Bokiti from mentioning names. But some of them, both young and old, and some of the things they say and everything, how did these people get on the ballot? I don't know.
But that's also what I call the beauty of democracy, right? One person, one vote. We've set some basic, but from what you're saying, it would then mean that we would have to change the qualification criteria.
Some other things will have to be.
Right, but until then, the rules that we have in place has some basic, and then you leave it up to the voters to decide. Yeah. Right? So whether it's 10, 15, 20 candidates, it's you treat it as a political marketplace, and the voters would weed
I
through.
don't like the sound of that, though. Political marketplace. It's like anyone could. But if you look at the Nigerian example, I mean, look at their population and everything. Even they are still able to whittle it down. Our population vis-a-vis theirs, and you look at our numbers, there's something wrong somewhere.
In your expert opinion, do you think we need to be reviewing the criteria so that we can also cut down the numbers? Do you think we need to review that?
And it's not necessarily cutting down for the sake of cutting down.
Right? Yeah,
it's about quality over quantity.
But that is where I also say that the quality issue and who we believe is best fit to lead the country is one that you would have to let the political marketplace decide, right? So we've set some basic criteria on how you get to be qualified to be placed on the ballot. And the question of whether you are the most qualified, whether you have the, the real substance, quality to be gone as president or to be a member of parliament, you throw that back and let that question be settled by the voters. I would feel very uncomfortable to let some bureaucrat or some administrative person in an institution try and make that decision of determining who is.
I think Parliament would have to play a role
Yeah.
in some such thing, and then our laws would have to reflect it. But another thing that would have to go in tandem with that to make it work would also be to ensure that political party funding is properly regulated, so that all these, because why is it that some of these people are able to come to the forefront and even get there? They are being sponsored by other parties, whether lobbyists, whether terrorists, we don't know, and whether NDC or MPP, we don't know. If you're able to cut those sources where people are not able to funnel through, you have to show where did you get your funding from. Like in the US, every cent is scrutinized. Some of these will naturally fall off, because we do know a lot of them are propped up by these parties just to go and water down. And you would see that, oh, if it is from this end and they know that, oh, my other side has a stronghold here, they make them strong there to go and water down the votes and the other way around as well.
But we also do have laws around political party financing.
Are they biting? They literally...
That is, yes, that's the key thing. It's the implementation and the enforcement of it. But
not virtually, they literally don't.
Yes, because there are rules around who can contribute to a political party, to a campaign, who can't. There are requirements for publishing annually your audited accounts that shows your assets, liabilities, where your money is coming from, and all of that. One time, an idea that I toyed with was that, what if the Electoral Commission, in the certification process of candidates, whether for president or for MP, right, that if you don't come with that audited finance statement that shows exactly where the funds are coming from, that you get disqualified from being placed on the ballot.
Maybe right from the start.
Yes, for me, that would be a strong enforcement tool of that provision that requires political parties to be very transparent in their party.
The question, though, does the EC have those powers?
Well, since they are the regulatory body over elections and the parties, I think they can read into...
But I think it's something that could be tricky.
Yes, that's true.
In fact, if we're able to implement it, there will be another way to cut down the numbers.
Yeah.
Let's do your paper now.
So the Daily Guide, Majority Caucus triggers Parliamentary call. I think we've delved into that, so maybe we'll not spend too much time there. Pastors, Chief defend Baumia. 2024 elections, NPP exposes NDC plot. And Next Gen Infraco CEO found. That's according to the police. Now that I mentioned the police, I just have to bring this in. Why, Ghana Police, have we not heard anything from you on the back of what happened recently to Erastus Asare Donko and the rest of our team? Ghana Police Service, unless one of you has seen something, I have not. Why is there no reaction, Ghana Police Service, on Erastus Asare Donko and everything that has happened? Why?
I thought that some arrests have been made. 3 arrests made, and
officially,
actually involved.
Officially.
Okay.
Officially.
The statement.
Nothing.
Okay.
I'm not talking about it's like when in the Ashanti region, some 7 youth also, do you remember that story? Were killed. And then, there were reactions. The police put out a statement. Eventually, it took, a year or 2? And then there was some compensation, though technically you can't compensate for human life. But my point is, the rapidness with which the Ghana Police Service, like in this next-gen Infraco case, then a statement is out. With Democracy Hub, a statement is out. Why have we not? Because those things also play a role in putting out that it's not just whatever counter or backdoor moves. We stand by something. We have seen something, and this is what why?
And especially on this...
and the presidency, yeah. In fact, more on the presidency, the Ghana Police Service, more on the presidency.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything from the presidency reacting to this issue?
No, not as of yesterday when I was checking on the news. And again, given the nature of this fight against Galamsey and the risk that media persons such as Erastus are going through to highlight the issue, it raises that other part of the fight against Galamsey, which is the security of those who are even trying to shine light on that. But as Sweetie was saying, I recall a news story about some arrests.
I'm looking at it right now, in fact. 3 arrests.
Yes, 3 arrests and further investigations into the matter.
Well, let's hope something, because, I've been thinking about that issue, and it just sickens me. You can be, and there was a point where Erastus talks about the fact that he has a man, married, children, family, and when they said they were not going to the next village and they were diverting somewhere, imagine, and he says it, they're taking you somewhere you don't know. Galamsey pits all around. If something happens to you and they dump you somewhere,
nobody would know, nobody would find you. Just
for doing your job.
Yes, and that for me is also what is commendable about the work that he is doing, which is knowing all of the risk and still, putting himself and his team out there just to bring attention to this issue that the consequences would not discriminate among citizens. Everybody would suffer if Galamsey ends up wreaking the kind of havoc that we are already seeing. It's not going to discriminate. It's not going to say that because person A lives here or person B belongs to this political party, when the water is polluted and is being pumped into our homes, the water is sort of going to diverge at certain points and you get the clean part and somebody else gets the... Yeah, but for me, how we respond to this situation hopefully would give Erastus and his team the confidence that they are just not alone in trying to shine light on this. Because the last thing you want is those who are also dedicated to the cause getting to a point of saying, what's the point? Yeah. It doesn't even really matter anymore, right? You want more active, engaged, civic-minded citizens who dedicate themselves
to get on board.
Yeah.
And especially when you have one of them in the back saying, and whatever, and buying their wasso, and you don't hear government officially say anything about it. It paints a very horrifying picture. But Napo grabs 3 awards in the United States, and contesting future election doesn't result in vacant seat. Godfrey Abuadami, the AG, has also given his thoughts reacting to that motion in court, or that suit, by Afenyo Markin. I'll just tease out in less than a minute, very quickly, some of the issues. So page 3. The New Patriotic Party says it has uncovered a shocking document written by its rival, the NDC, detailing a sinister plot to disrupt government business through underhand tactics using its minority members of parliament. The communications director of the NPP, Richard Ehangba, told journalists at the party's HQ in Accra yesterday that the NPP had verified the document, which consisted of 11 chapters. It goes on and on. I've seen is it 50-something page document, 56 or so pages. So that is what they add there. He highlights several instances of the opposition's alleged plot to obstruct government's revenue, including the deliberate blocking of key measures such as the 2022 budget revenues proposal, the MDA fees and charges bill, e-levy, and more. And then, what's that? The New Patriotic Party's running mate, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, is a proud recipient of 3 different prestigious awards in the U.S., 3 influential NPP groups in the U.S., including the NPP USA branch, NPP USA Youth Wing, and USA NAPO Inspires, each presented different citations to him. Okay, so that's the story there. Other stories I don't think I can get into because of time. Let's quickly look at your headlines. So
the one that caught my attention is from the Political Digest, and it says, "We can't pretend there are no challenges with free SHS, NAPO." And there's a quote attributed to him which says, we do not and cannot pretend that challenges remain. They do. But we will continue to confront them boldly and honestly. No challenge is insurmountable, he stated, emphasizing the NPP's resolve to tackle existing obstacles within the education sector. And that headline caught my attention because if you look at the NCC report yesterday, education emerged as the #1 ranked issue on the minds of voters. Right. The good thing that the NCC also does is that on each of these sector issues, they ask specifically what should be the issue that needs to be addressed. And under education, the #1 specific issue was address challenges with the implementation of free SHS. Yeah. I found it to be very instructive in the sense that for now, the free SHS debate has been framed as who is for it, who is against it, who will keep it, who will cancel it, right? But from what the NCC is finding, you realize that on the minds of Ghanaians, the issue is not really who is against it or who is for it. There is a recognition that, yes, it is a good policy, but its implementation has come with challenges. And those challenges must be addressed. And so that's what really caught my attention from the Political Digest.
Okay. Would you like to look at the New Republic very quickly?
Yes.
So we head out.
Babin one-man commando dribbles Chief Justice, Jubilee House, and shuts down Parliament as Alexander Afenyo-Markin weeps on the sidelines. It's just interesting how this brouhaha is being, depicted and all of that. For me, though, again, while...
But you know the bottom of all of this, if I may? Disrespect.
Yeah.
You know why? Because it's like 3 juggernauts and the separation of powers points to it. The rule of law directs it as well. 3 juggernauts who are supposed to be on the same pegging, who start fighting. I'm Catholic, so we believe in the Trinity, 3 in 1, yet not 3 persons, 1. 3 persons in one God, okay? Imagine if, per our belief, you had the Father fighting with the Son,
and the Son fighting
with the Holy Spirit. I am more. No, equal. No one is lesser than the other. 3 persons, 1 God. But in this instance, you have, look at the bit about LGBTQ. Okay, so you want to tell us that you don't want to stick to the script anymore. You will not sign. You will also not give you are claiming there is some court. Okay, you want to play like that. I think it is those things that are creating these tensions among the 3, because it's like, you want to do that. But we can also find there are many ways of skinning unnecessary.
Right.
I agree. Unnecessary in Parliament, unnecessary with the executive, even sometimes unnecessary with the judiciary. But it's power play, ego.
And eventually, we have to find a way to come out of this in such a way that each of these 3 co-equal branches of government respects each other. That respect is not compromised. That independence is not compromised. On the substantive matter around this issue, which is what does 97(1) G and H actually mean? My hope is that whichever way the court comes down on those provisions, it will do it in such a way that it doesn't touch on parliamentary procedures and how Parliament goes about its business, right? It has to find a way to make that separation so that you preserve the independence of Parliament, allowing it to be masters of their own domain, whilst also you asserting your prerogative that as the highest court of the land, it is your job to interpret the Constitution. And they will have to find a really delicate balance to make sure that at the end of the day, our institutions still remain co-equal branches of government. Poor
souls, those of us who are the receiving end of this war. But that's where we should wrap up. But do you have some final thoughts for us in about 20 seconds? We do have to wrap up.
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for joining us on News Review. Benjamin, any final words, or should we just wrap it up?
That, of course, Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, we're grateful for your time.
My pleasure, anytime.
All right, stay with us because sports is coming up next with Muftana Bil Abdullahi.